Blessings, BookTube. I wanted to start a new series because I wanted to do a little bit more with mystery. In particular, I was looking for ways to highlight mysteries that don't involve a murder. And I was reminded of a collection of stories by the great Agatha Christie called The 12 Labors of Hercules. It's a Poirot book in which Poirot, towards the end of his days, decides he's going to pick cases based on this sort of weird comparison with the labors of Hercules. It's a weird book, and the first mystery is a lost dog story. So I liked it. It's not a murder, and it's a fun and interesting little story. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I'll analyze it a little bit at the end. But first, I thought I should remind you of what this is the first labor, and I thought I should remind you of what the first labor is, which is where Hercules gets him the Nemean lion. And that's that lion. You sometimes see Hercules or Heracles in the lion skin. That's from this, and that lion is got this sort of impenetrable skin. Although Poirot seems to remember it as invisible, um, if I recall. So this I'm taking from. I'm going to read it to you in its original from Apollodorus. I'm not sure this is Apollodorus of Rhodes, sometimes called Pseudo Apollodorus. Um, this is from his work called the Bibliotheca, from Book 2. Section 5 is where the labors are beginning. And I have it here in a side-by-side Greek version, but I do not easily read Greek to be able to make any meaningful observations about the original Greek there for you. But at least we've got the original telling of the story. Here we go. 5. When Hercules heard that, he went to Tiryns and did as he was bid by Eurystheus. Yes. First, Eurystheus ordered him to bring the skin of the Nemean lion. Now that was an invulnerable beast begotten by Typhon. And there's a million notes, but I won't go into them because I want to do this somewhat fast. But it explains who Typhon was and all that. If you're not up on your classical illusions, I remember about half of them. On his way to attack the lion, he came to Cleonae and lodged at the house of a day laborer, Molochus. And when his host would have offered a victim in sacrifice, Hercules told him to wait for 30 days, and then, if he had returned safe from the hunt, to sacrifice to Savior Zeus, but if he were dead, to sacrifice to him as to a hero. And having come to Nemea and tracked the lion, he first shot an arrow at him. But when he perceived that the beast was invulnerable, he heaved up his club and made after him. And when the lion took refuge in a cave with 2 mouths, Hercules built up the one entrance and came in upon the beast through the other, and putting his arm round its neck, held it tight, till he had choked it. So, laying it on his shoulders, he carried it to Cleonae, and finding Molochus on the last of the 30 days, about to sacrifice the victim to him, as to a dead man, he sacrificed to Savior Zeus, and brought the lion to Mycenae. Amazed at his manhood, Eurystheus forbade him thenceforth to enter the city, but ordered him to exhibit the fruits of his labors before the gates. There's going to be a bunch of trophies piling up pretty soon. Not every of the 12 labors results in the killing of an animal and the taking of a trophy, but a lot of them do. They say too that in his sphere he had a bronze. This is not Hercules' sphere. This is Eurystheus' sphere. In his sphere he had a bronze jar made for himself to hide in under the earth, and that he sent his commands for the labors through a herald, Coprius, son of Pelops the Elean. This Coprius had killed Iphitus and fled to Mycenae, where he was purified by Eurystheus and took up his abode. as a second labor. Okay, now we're going on to the second labor, but you have to wait for the next video for that one. But that means we get to move on to the first mystery. Let me open my notes here. On this one, I think I'm going to highlight some of the humor that you often get in Poirot through some various techniques like reductio and hyperbole and things of that nature. So now normally or very often someone comes into 221 Baker Street, and often it's the wife, but in this case it's the husband. So the husband comes about his wife's lost dog. He does not love the dog. Um, so that I thought was interesting right off the bat. But soon we're off to their house. They've got a big country house as usual, like a lot of the Poirot's clients. And it's Millie. Is Millie the name of the dog or the lady? I can't remember. But he says this of the lady, and I thought it was pretty funny. He sort of equates the dog and the lady. He says that one of those bulging-eyed, over-pampered pets of a rich woman. Here, of a rich woman could link it in a possessive way, like in French it would be the over-pampered pets de la femme riche. Um, so, in other words, in English, Agatha Christie, could have written this. One of the rich woman's bulging-eyed, over-pampered pets. But by putting this "of" in the linkage, which sort of ambivalates the direction of the bulging eyes and the over-pampering and the pethood, one can sort of see where the woman herself is equated with her dog. They do say, don't they, that dogs and their owners often look alike. Next, Hercule Poirot's eyes rested critically on the swelling jowl and the small pig eyes and the bulbous nose and the closed-lipped mouth. So now we are describing the client. So again, you see some animal-like descriptions there: jowl, pig eyes, bulbous nose, right? Okay, so Poirot is taking these lowly cases um, for this grand last victory lap of his career, but that doesn't mean he's not going to look down on the clients, as he sometimes does with great clients, but especially with these sort of petty um, little cases like lost pets. Now, what's interesting, I should have said up front about this lost pet, is that it's actually a found pet. So the pet was found, but the finder did not even pretend to ask for a reward, but straight up admitted they were dog nappers by sending a um ransom note. So the dog has already been ransomed at this point. I think 20 pounds. The wife, I'm going to call her Millie. I hope that's not the dog. Millie paid for it. And the husband, therefore, is just after revenge. He just wants the dog nappers caught. He is livid that he is out 20 pounds. So I'm sure he could afford. Okay, on to the next bit here. This quotation says, "No frills about me. I don't beat about the bush. Most people, Mr. Poirot, would let this business go, write it off as a bad debt, and forget about it." So now we are looking at the words of the husband, and you can see that he talks about himself in the third person, um, and he is apparently a straight shooter, straight to the point. He doesn't mess around. He doesn't waste time. You can see that with his sentence fragments, right? No frills about me. Write it off as a bad debt and forget it. Um, it's also, by the way, his name is Hoggins, Joseph Hoggins. So again, we've got this sort of animalistic association. Um, he's Sir Joseph Hoggins. Sorry. Um, and as he says of himself, I'm a rich man. He does have an unfortunate resemblance to something to do with soap in in Poirot's memory, but these industrialists can all begin to look alike, don't they? Or at least we can say that of their dogs. So a memory stirred dimly a long time ago in Belgium, something surely to do with soap. Um, and marrows. So again, we just sort of have this reducto ad absurdum, right? It's just everything is down to these really banal, domestic um, objects like soap, marrows. Um, Now, there's quite a bit of the you can't expect a woman to behave with any sense stuff going on because he's quite mad that she spent the money. And later, we're going to meet another couple that had pretty much the same experience, and she paid £30 for hers. So I don't know how they set the price for these dogs that are pretty much identical. Hint, hint. All right, don't know about Felicity, married, but if you were, you'd know that women are funny creatures. So you know Poirot with his over politeness. So he says something to the point about women at that point is like, "Are you married?" And he says that he has not that Felicity. To which the man says, "I don't know about Felicity, not happily married. Women are such funny creatures." Later, there will be some of the ladies saying some unkind things about the gentlemen as well. So at least we've got a little bit of equality there. Okay, next we've got, yes, indeed, he's such a good watchdog. He's not frightened of anything or anyone. Now, I believe this is the second lady's dog. Shan Tung is the name. These are little, what do they call these kind of dogs? They're the ones that look like lion faces. There's the little guardian dogs. They're tiny. Shih Tzus, is that it? Shantong, I was trying to make out the name. The best I could do was a Mandarin Shan, which means mountain, kind of grand, and a Cantonese Tong, which is, the Chinatown. It means hall, but it's what the Chinatowns began to be called. So that's the name. And in fact, she calls her dog such a good watchdog, a veritable lion at one point. But then again, as I say, they all look the same. But some have been well trained. In fact, they could be so well trained that some of them can negotiate even one-way roads. Pekingese, sorry, that's the name of the dogs, Pekingese. But actually, her Pekingese, she goes on to say that her Pekingese are terribly sensitive. So at one point, she's claiming this is a great watchdog, but then she's talking about how sensitive the poor fellow is. And what an abominable crime. Wicked. This is Poirot speaking, but it's quite clear that he does not find these crimes wicked or abominable. Although they do threaten to cut off the ears and tail of the dogs if they are not paid or if they involve the police or things of that nature. Um, in both cases, the woman wanted to pay and didn't want to involve even Poirot, let alone police. In both cases, the men are mad and want their money back. And in both cases, there are companion women. Um, One is thin and one is fat. What else can we say about them? The first one is named Carnaby, which I think is perhaps a little infantilizing, like Carn Baby. Um, and the lady says of her, Millie, I believe it is, says of her, all old maids and are fools, all companions are fools, because the maids who are walking the dogs are tricked when they stop to admire a baby in a pram, and that's when the dog is snatched and uh, the lead is cut. The leash, I guess we'd say in American English, is cut while they're admiring babies. Um, so it's, you've got these ladies, these grand dams, who are looked down upon by their husbands who think they've no money sense. But at the same time, they know what they value. They value their dogs more than their companions, and they're willing to pay for it. But at the same time, you have these women sort of paying it downwards by they in turn looking down on their companions as well. So sort of women hating on women. All right, so We're getting into spoiler territory. Can't say much about that. Okay. Um, not precisely intellectual at one point. Someone says of the, I believe it's of one of the companions. Um, Now the drop-off sites of the money is kind of interesting. In both cases, they are uh, sort of cheap hotels, more like boarding houses. Britain used to have these boarding houses. I wish we had this nowadays just to help with the housing crisis. Women who had property would let out rooms in their houses, including dinners, and people would go and stay there, and it was a way for people to have housing, single people to have housing and food, and they were generally cheap and all that. But they had a sort of revolving cast of people coming and going. Although people stayed there longer terms, than it wasn't like a by the night, or definitely not a by the hour, hotel. Still, obviously they have people come and people go, so they collect a lot of mail there. So the letters, when they came with the payment of money, were not noticed by the landladies of the Balaclava Hotel. Is the first one. I'm not sure. I meant to look it up whether Balaclava at this time, it has a foreign ring to it, doesn't, which is already a bit louche. But I wanted to look up if it was even then, back then, associated with the sort of hooded villain that is balaclavas have come to be seen now as sort of a thing for your bank robber or whatnot to wear. The second hotel was called, let's see if I can remember. It's in my notes here somewhere. Well, anyway, Lady Hodgin, this is the second lady. Her hair was dyed with peroxide. Her Pekingese was called Nankipu. Oh no, sorry, this is a third victim. Um, the uh, the letters are addressed in each case to a military man. In the first, to Captain Curtis Balaclava, and in the second, to Commander Blackley at the Harrington Hotel. That was the name of the second hotel. So not a lot of associations with the name there. But Poirot eventually goes to investigate in a third hotel, which he has his valet Georges research a certain vicinity and a certain character of hotel, and goes there to find a sound of barking. And I'll leave it at that. Um, he does the second gentleman, who sort of isn't impressed with Poirot, perhaps because he's investigating a dog napping, does say to Poirot that when Poirot inevitably says, "Of course I will succeed," which he would say probably in any case, let alone a dog napping. And the second gentleman does say, "Pride goes before a fall." So that is kind of interesting. Um, Trying to figure out if this series of last mysteries redounds, adds to the cachet of Poirot, or does it somehow sort of diminish him, like these aging World Cup stars that we have playing footy right now? Um, it does say at one point in there the surprising invisibility of the star performer, the Nemean lion himself. Georges the valet said that he is invaluable. Georges does say that these blondes, sir, are responsible for a lot of trouble. So, cherchez la femme, right? Um, your psychology is excellent. Your organization is first class, and you are also a very fine actor, Poirot says to the uh, perpetrator when finally that perpetrator is caught. And it's one of those resolutions where you don't know, is Poirot going to make sure that the villain pays the price, or is it going to be one of those where rare times when Poirot was tempted to let them go? Um, Now, the last thing I'll say is there's a little bit of the interesting class stuff in here, in again the resolution, and so it's difficult to discuss it. But we'll just say that someone says of the uh, one of the victims, the Sir Joseph banker, occasionally used to describe a coup he had made in the city, sometimes forgetting that seemed to me, of course, I know I've only a woman's brain and don't understand finance, downright dishonest. So there is a sense of a hurly-burly world where perhaps great crimes go unpunished, whereas petty crimes are um, inordinately severely punished. Um, Sir Joseph hits the table with his fist when Poirot says to him that he can get him back his money or he can get him justice. He can get his vindictiveness. He can get the culprit. And Sir Joseph hits the table with his fist. He says, "I'll have my brass. Nobody's going to say they got away with 200 pounds of my money. Oh, sorry, I was off by a factor of 10. It was 200 pounds in the first case and 300 pounds in the second. That is quite a bit more money, even in the Victorian era. Still, um, probably compared to vet bills nowadays that people pay for their pets, probably quite cheap. Um, And then, yes, I can't tell you that last bit because that would be a spoiler. So here's me trying to negotiate spoilers for a rare time. And I hope I did an okay job of it. I didn't give anything away, but I hope I was still able to say something a little bit interesting about the mystery. I gave a couple hints too along the way that might help you see if you can form a theory, and then go read the story to see if you're right because they're super short and they're fun. So this is a new series. Let me know if you like it. If you do, you're going to get 12 of them. If you don't, you probably get 12 of them anyway, as long as I keep liking them. Um, and I know I didn't go too much into what Hercules set Hercules off on these 12 labors, but I'll probably have occasion to discuss that in a future video as well. So you can look forward to that. Thank you and have a wonderful day. And like, subscribe, comment. What are the other things you can do? Share this with people. I'm so good at self promotion. Sorry. Alrighty. Cheerio.